people, and they're doing some
We should call this the SBA
stuff.
radio show.
First of all, we've got Bob Nelson, who runs the Boston office of the SBA, and his big boss, JHulit, runs the New England office.
That's correct.
Same location, but
Right.
different office.
More geography.
More geography, more miles in my car.
Well, you know, you guys have got us real inspired the last time we had you on last week, talking about all the jobs you're creating, the money you're lending out, the veterans program. It's very, very exciting. But you think this Job Act is something that we should really jump on and look into?
I do. I think it's really important because one of the things that I hear regularly from businesses is that the most important thing for them is confidence. In order to invest and hire people, they need to have confidence. And that's a political action just as well as an economic action. As we all saw with the debt ceiling crisis,
Right.
you know, the economy took a dive after that.
Right.
So getting the politicians on board to pass the provisions of the American Jobs Act that will do things immediately in addition to creating demand by giving tax cuts to workers as well as companies to get more money in their pockets. As we all know, the U.S. economy is 70% driven by the consumer. So
Right.
give that consumer a payroll tax cut, they're going to have more money to spend. Here in Massachusetts, with the median income, that's about $1,800 for each worker in terms of being able to spend money. So that's important in terms of creating demand. But as well, we need to create jobs. And so today, which is the 17th of October, I believe, or the 18th, we ended, for next week, the President took a provision of the Jobs Act and put it forward as a separate section. So that will help create jobs for teachers and first responders.
Okay.
As we all know, with state budgets crashing right now, the teachers are losing their jobs. Fire departments are getting cut. So one of those provisions is $35 billion for teachers and first responders, which would result in about $600 million for Massachusetts, preserving or creating almost 7,000 first responder and teacher jobs. And I can tell you that that is not only creating jobs, but it is also investing in our people.
One of our listeners has a question for you.
Sure.
Did the 2009 stimulus create jobs?
Yes, it did. You know, the reality is, all the economists say that if the stimulus hadn't gone into effect, we would have lost about 3 million more jobs.
3 million.
So
That's a lot of
we ended up
jobs.
not only preserving jobs, but creating jobs. Because you have to recognize the private sector was losing jobs rapidly, and then the public sector was losing jobs. So a lot of the money went into public sectors, both in the states and the municipal, construction workers, etc. So that kept those public sector jobs employed, while we continue to have them paying taxes and working and creating economic stimulus that gradually, by last year, 2010, created a net increase in private sector jobs.
Do you get aggravated when you watch the news?
Very much.
It's so.
Do you scream at the TV set?
No, I don't. I understand that everybody, has to spend things their own way. But
Right.
the reality is, this administration, this president inherited a disaster. I mean, I have the bar graphs that show the rapid decline in employment that was occurring when he took office. And it hit the bottom, and it's been climbing back since, and we are net creating new jobs. And as I mentioned in our previous segment, 60% of the net new jobs since we started creating private sector jobs have been from the small business community.
And this is a president that has a disastrously low opinion rating.
That's correct.
And he's the one creating the jobs.
I think so, and I think that there needs to be some awareness about how we got into the problem. It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be solved overnight. But you have to do the right tools, not only to create demand, but also to create jobs.
But, Jeffrey's right. When you watch the news, it's only bad news. I mean, they never tell you the great stories of things that you're doing with the SBA.
Well, that's why shows like yours are so important, because we have to have a dialogue. A lot of the news that's on TV is, snippets and sound bites, gotchas.
Right.
And, conversations like yours are the kind of in-depth conversation that brings meaningful information to your listeners.
Right, because, a lot of your programs, you know them intimately, but the public and a lot of entrepreneurs aren't aware of them, so this is a great way to get the word out.
Well, thank you. One of the things we don't have in government is a marketing budget, and we've talked about all the great resources the SBA has. People don't know it, and so obviously, we're very grateful to have an opportunity to talk to you to get that message out.
And Bob can only be 24/7, so he has to take a break once in a while.
Yeah.
But so that is a good question. How how do you get the word out to, you know, the business world of what all these new programs you have and the different services that you offer?
Well, one of the big things that we do is just an enormous amount of outreach and partnering with our small business development centers, our chambers of commerce, you know, the media to get the word out.
And your radio show, MYOB.
Exactly.
We love being your voice. Now, I have another question from Robert in the studio. He
Sure.
can't help himself because he has a undergraduate and a master's degree in political science, so he can't help himself. He's
He's
here we
very
go, Robert.
political,
Get it
so-
go, Robert.
Yeah, so I have a specific question. The president wants to break up the bill into pieces.
Actually, he wanted to pass it in whole.
Yeah, he
Congress
wanted to
wouldn't
pass
bring it
it
to
in
the floor.
whole.
So
Was-
now he's bringing it in broken up
Breaking
pieces.
it in pieces, so would it make sense? I mean, it may make sense politically to do it because you might get Republican support. But on a policy standpoint, by breaking up the bill, doesn't that just create more problems, you know?
I think the important thing is to pass legislation that will create jobs now. And the Senate wouldn't bring the bill to the floor, so there couldn't be a vote. And if there is no vote, you can't create jobs.
So you're
You can't-
pragmatic.
So yeah, pragmatically, you either sit by and say, well, we tried to get it to the floor, the Senate wouldn't pass it, so oops, we tried and nothing happened.
So it's a political move. He breaks it up because he feels he can break in pieces. He can maybe get somewhere.
It's a move to help the American, you know, the American get some needed stimulus
In
right
other
away.
words, they're trying to get through the government, which is the obstacles to success, and really get to the people and help the people.
Well, right now, obviously, as I mentioned earlier in the
Gridlock.
segment, one of the biggest concerns for the business community is confidence. You know, businesses plan long term. They need to be able to have a window into what's going to happen. And if Washington is frozen with gridlock and action isn't being taken on things that have bipartisan support historically, then there is no confidence from the business community that our politicians are going to do the things that need to be done to create the economic environment that will create jobs.
Right. Good.
Now, you mentioned about infrastructure, and you know, and construction segment has been really hurt a lot, you know, compared to other segments. So, this bill would also put a lot of the construction and road repair people back, and bridge repair people
Absolutely,
back to work.
yes. There's about $50 billion in the bill for infrastructure, with about $850 million going to Massachusetts, projecting to create about 11,000 jobs just here in Massachusetts.
Probably not even enough. It's just a
Yeah,
start.
it's just a start. And one of the ways that the SBA partners, you know, with that kind of proposal, is that we really work with the small business community to ensure that they're getting access to those government contracts.
See, I'm a big fan of high-speed rail. You know, and that just seems to be a political thing that just can't happen. But again, it would be great to get, you know, like the trains in Europe. It'd be great to be able to go to New York in 30 minutes and be able to go to Washington and Baltimore and open up this whole corridor for business, which is such it's an economic hub of the planet, and to really be able to exercise that. And there's just not enough money for infrastructure right now.
Correct. There's a kind of long-term strategic plans like that I think, to be honest with you, I'm very supportive as well. That's a bigger debate, but there's some immediate needs that we have for infrastructure. I mean, the amount of bridges that are Class D in this country that
Right.
need to be repaired now.
Right.
You know, those are the kind of jobs we can move on, and there's bipartisan support for. Rather than getting into the economics of whether high-speed rail and public subsidized infrastructure projects like that, have legs.
Gene, now, beside lending and helping guaranteeing loans, you help companies do business with the government as well. How does that work?
We help train small businesses on how to get government contracts. The government is required to give 23% of all federal contracts to small businesses. And there are special set-asides for some groups, underserved communities, women, etc. So we help those companies become certified so that they can get the set-aside contract from the federal government. But whether they're certified or not, federal contractors need to provide 23% of their contracts to small business. So we do the partnering with our federal agencies and small business so they know how to get together. We run a lot of matchmakers.
I think because MYOB does so much promotion of the SBA that we should get a small business loan so we can promote our signal to a bigger signal.
As I mentioned, that the federal government is required to provide 23% of federal contracts to small business. We haven't made that goal for years and years and years. I mean, it's just
Really?
yeah. Last year we came as close as I think we ever had at 22.8%, 7%
Ah.
of federal contract to small business. So,
Just missed.
and then that's an awful lot of work with the SBA and our colleagues working with the small business procurement officers at every federal agency.
So, Gene, if someone wants to get hold of you, how would they do that?
The best thing to do is to go on our SBA website, sba.gov, and /Massachusetts. We'll get our Massachusetts district office. But to get to me personally, probably the best thing is an email at Jeanne, Jeanne, .Hulit, Hulit, @sba.gov.
And
we-
what about Mr. Nelson? How would we find him if somebody wanted to get in
Mr.
touch with
Nelson's
him?
telephone number, email, and contact information is on the Mass website, but if he'd like to give his contact.
Sure. The phone number for the district office, 617-565-5590. And again, the SBA Massachusetts website, sba.gov/MA.
And also, we've taped this whole segment, and it'll be up on YouTube so that your network base can contact it. Our network base, it'll be on our website as well, the MYOB website, MYOB Mind Your Own Business. And also people can connect through you through our Facebook and our LinkedIn sites. So we're going to try to connect with you through all that because we want to get the message out of what you can do for small business. So thank you very much,
Thank
both of
you
you, for
very
coming.
much. Appreciate
We
it.
really
Thank you for the
appreciate
time.
what
And you're
you're
going to
doing.
come back with more information
Whenever
like this,
you
right?
want us, we'll be
We
here
want
for
you
you.
next week.